are starting our panel for business and tips and tricks for artists and illustrators for marketing, networking, and beyond. I am your host, Rika, and we have our three participants this time around. Devaki, Bruce, and Trivia, and I will let you introduce yourselves. Ladies first. Devaki.
Yes. So I'm Devaki Nyogi, and I am right now sitting in Bangalore, India, and it's nighttime, 11:30. And I work as a professional comic book artist in for the last 7 years, full time in the American industry. So I have worked in a number of creator-owned as well as licensed properties. I've also been part of many anthologies, and I do that as a full time. So I'm just very excited here to share my journey as a freelance comic book artist and illustrator.
That's very nice. Trivia, your turn.
Hi, so I'm Trivia. I'm associate producer over at Renegade Game Studios. And previous to that, and also I guess still a little bit now, I've been doing freelance illustration for over 10 years. So I've got some feelings and thoughts about all that. And Bruce.
And I'm Bruce Bernisi. I'm a freelance illustrator. I've been working professionally for about 6-7 years, mostly in games. I'm best known for my work on Slay the Spire and Numenera, and more recently Magic the Gathering. And I've grown my business from, I think, about $4,000 the first year to 55 now. So I have some thoughts on business.
That's really nice to hear.
Yeah.
So, this is quite an interesting and quite a wide topic, I think.
Yeah.
Let's see. For business, I think I can say it with relative ease that most artists would find it difficult, to put it mildly, to wrap their head around this subject. If somebody starts out from the very beginning, what is your first advice?
I think my first advice would be don't discount the value of your day job, because a lot of artists or creatives feel maybe a little bit discouraged to need such a thing, but the best thing for your business starting out is investment. Being able to invest time and money in going to workshops, conventions, networking, all of those sorts of things are the building blocks of your business. And, it takes money to do. So being able to save up a bit of a runway to start your business makes a big difference.
I'd say that most artists in America, at least, right, where cost of living is so high. If you ask anyone who's full-time now, there was a time when they had another full-time job, or they had their partners supporting them, or they still lived at home with their parents. Like, most people have had some basis of doing it on the side as they were building their business. So it's not a level of failure or anything like that you can't go full-time right away, or even after you get 10,000 Twitter followers. Like, it takes a lot of time to build up enough work that you can actually live off of it.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah. So I think that this question was asked to me many years back as to how I am doing it full time. But so I had a job, a full-time job as a comic book artist, and I think I got a taste of what it needs to do a comic book page in a day, and the demands are quite high, and it can get really tough. I mean, I couldn't imagine while doing that full-time job on a salary of doing anything else or having a life beyond that. So when I wanted to start freelancing after that job, I knew well in advance that I have to be prepared to do it full time. I cannot manage, and that's only just my experience. I know other people who have had a daytime job and had a comic book career, and they've slowly increased that portion of time in the day that they spent on comic books, more into the day job, and then finally it was able to take over. But for me, I felt like it is an art form that you learn more while on the job. So I have to spend a lot of time doing, practicing. And so I started off, but I did have some support in the sense of having a partner. And then, so I just, but I have to add to the fact that when I wanted to start freelance after having 5, 6 years of a full-time job, I was very nervous. So I went to, people who were senior to me and I asked, and the suggestion was you can take a loan. You can take a personal loan. You can take a loan from someone and maybe for a year, and then just see how it works out so that it allows you a full-time, investment into your chosen field. But I didn't need to do that. And I started off my freelance by pitching my work for a children's book. I didn't start off immediately as a comic book artist. So while I was there, I was still earning, and I was also practicing anatomy and landscapes and other things that are part of sequential art. And eventually, I was able to transition from a children's book artist to a comic book artist. And so I was also lucky to have a book which was taken, which was created as a pitch and was taken over, because I was contacted by somebody from the US who had the contacts and could do that. So we could just earn money off it. So I think some of the things panned out for me, and that's why I was able to do it without wanting to split that time with the day job.
Sadly. So, as I find it, sometimes luck is also as much a huge impact on our profession as much as anything else. And what is your opinion about as a business, as a freelancer? We are in an interesting part because we are jumping from project to project to commission, where sometimes we get close to studios, or somebody just likes to work with people through Instagram and Twitter and whatever. What would be not easiest, because it is everybody's personal choice, of course, but what would be your choice if you could start over with your mindset now? What would you do?
Is that a question to me?
For everybody who wants to.
Okay.
Bruce, you think you have this thought? Deep in thoughts.
Starting over fresh with what I know now.
Yes.
I had a really rough first year of it, in part because I did not at the time understand the value of networking. And so I was just holed up in my art cave and not going out anywhere. And I didn't have any artist friend network anymore because my art school days were about 6 years behind me at that point. And after about that first year of very rough times, applying to everything that I found on the internet and getting nothing, I started going to in-person events and getting to know more people and trying to build relationships and friendships. And actually, it's funny, trivia was at one of the first events that I did when I sort of realized, we were like at a game dev event in Seattle. I almost immediately I started finding results from getting to meet other artists who are like, oh, well, I've got a job that I can't take on. Here, have something. And those sorts of things really created a big break for me. So I think that would be my big takeaway.
Since networking is such a huge thing, but it is interesting that it is not too much mentioned. So when you ask for advice, most people just say practice, practice, practice. And while this is also important, but I think most people just skip over this quite important aspect. That you need to build networking, you need to build your social media presence, and so on and so forth. Trivia, what is your take on this?
Yeah, so when I first started off, I was doing everything all online. Oh, so if I had to do it all over again, similar to Bruce, I would definitely try to brand my stuff earlier and like have kind of the things I wanted to do more as like my central thing, right? Like I think Bruce has done a great job of like I do cool, weird, landscapey, like speculative fiction stuff. And like if I ever have a project where that is what we're looking for, I already know immediately that I should go to somebody like that, right? And I think it took me a long time to kind of figure out what I wanted to do. And I got to the point where I was really burnt out as an artist, and I actually have repetitive stress injuries now in both of my
Mm.
hands. And so that's another reason that I ended up going into management is because I'm like, I just can't like physically draw as much as I need to. So I need to have another skill set. And so I definitely would have figured out how to um work in a way where I didn't have to work 10, 12 hours a day. And to figure out more ways to get passive income either through prints or
Oh, yes.
merch or um having a good like Patreon presence, and find out other ways to have my work for me instead of just doing a lot of one-off commissions. Because I started in fan communities and went to a lot of, conventions and whatnot where it's like, pay me $150 to draw you a picture right
Mm.
now, and then
Oh,
I
yes.
don't think it's a good enough quality to make prints off of, so I now have no residuals. So yeah, I would have worked more to get that handled before I broke my hands some. Now I fill out
Mm.
spreadsheets mostly instead. But yeah. And like even if you can't network in person, like right now, obviously that's a big thing, but finding art groups and like hanging out where other artists are hanging out that are at your skill level is a great way to do it. Like there's a ton of Discord communities now,
Oh,
and
yes.
Twitter and whatnot. And yeah, just becoming part of a community of people that are at the same level as you is huge. And like Bruce said, you start to share work, or somebody will like in fan communities where there's a lot of commissioning going on, like somebody will see art that like from another artist. Sorry, let me start that over again. I ended up doing a lot of fan art for other artists that were in the same zone as me, so they would post it because I had
Oh,
done them fan art, or they would retweet it and whatnot, and so I
oh,
got
yes.
cross
Yes,
sell
that was
for
good.
that too. So
Devaki, your take, please.
Sorry. So I feel like with every project, I'm starting all over again because there is something different I'm doing in my approach towards as a professional, how to connect with other professionals in the industry. And I have to mention this that I live in India and we don't have the comic book culture that I was interested to be part when I started out was American comics, and um, I started off there, and what I am unable to do is to network with people in person because I'm not able to travel, and it's really a big task to travel there, be part of cons and all that. So if I have to think this doing it now, I started off sometime planning last year that I need to travel, I need to meet people, I need to see all the people I have been talking to and I have been working with in the past like 3, 4 years. I mean, have been very meaningful. I want to meet them. So I applied for the visa and all of that happened very smoothly. And then the COVID happened. Then I'm not able to travel again. So that's the plan ahead. But I think that I want to add, for a person like me who is somewhere else and not in that country where the medium is where you're working with the publishers, one of the ways to do it is that not to hesitate approaching people online. So on Twitter, on a
Yes.
DM, or even on a message or on a Facebook, or just ask for advice, whether they are of the same level of expertise for you or whether it's somebody who has already achieved the recognition. And I did that. And I think nobody till now has ever said no when I asked for help. Or I always ask questions. I went to people and asked questions that I want to know about this, how to go about this, will this happen? And they really offered to work with me as well. So I have
Mhm.
been very fortunate and I'm grateful for those people contacted me. So even sometimes it didn't work out to a commission project, but we kept in touch. I kept in touch and I always made it a point to go back and check whether I'm doing the right thing. Because speaking to someone, having a relation so remotely over online and approaching editors, I mean, that's a big deal. I mean, how do you approach editors? Because different publishers have different so-called protocols, and you don't send out
Yes.
unsolicited emails because they'll not be responded to, and you might end up looking like an unprofessional. You don't want to do that. So it's like I'm very grateful. Like again, I'm saying, I had help. I had people wanting to help me out to recommend me as an artist, and it almost like 70% of those things have worked out for me. So, and it's like I don't hesitate to approach somebody online because I know that's the best use I can do because I can't travel there. So yeah, I think I'll say that.
What I find it interesting is that most beginners are really frightened to contact more famous or well-known concept artists and the kind. Like I remember I was totally nerve-wracked when I contacted one of the leader illustrators on the field, Todd Lockwood, and he was such a guy. So he just calmly responded in a nice email. And I was really shocked and surprised that yes, he is human. He is reacting like everybody else. So, back on the business part of the things, wait, we have a question, I think. Oh, no, never
No,
mind.
just a response.
Just a response, sorry. um, on the business side of things, you mentioned Patreon and passive income. Some of the artists I know stand on multiple legs, so to speak. Some use Patreon, some use craftables and sell those like notebooks and whatever. It matters what they do, of course. Um, what is your advice about? Sorry,
A little feedback, yeah.
oh, sorry. So, what is your feedback on Patreon and other passive income things? What is your recommendation? When to start? What is the prerequisite?
So for Patreon, I feel like, you could do a really long workshop series just on Patreon. There's a
Oh,
billion
yes.
ways to come at it. In my circles, there's a few like there's like the tip jar version, which is I'm not investing that much in this. If you want to support me monthly, there's a couple of tiers here. Maybe you get access to a bunch of my sketches or whatnot, right? That's behind a paywall, that sort of thing. And that's the most like hands off. You're probably not going to make more than $100 a month for this unless you are already like top tier, blah blah blah. Then there's also, people that make Patreon a part of their work. So they're posting all of their works in progress. They're giving special access to their patrons for either like prints or early slots if they do commission type things. They're doing work in process videos. And then there's people that make their Patreon like the shop front for their stuff. So Patreon is the only way that you can access their merch and their items and that
Yes.
sort of thing. So it's kind of how much you want to put into it. Like I personally feel that diversification of platforms is really important. You know, not to get into anything too blue, but like Patreon originally was very open to a lot of forms of art, including not safe for work art. And then as they grew, they had to pull back on that. So a lot of people that had put a ton of investment into Patreon that happened to also do not safe for work art now we're no longer able to make their money that way. So
Ouch.
yeah, which it's all up to credit card and payment processors what they allow on their platforms. And
That's correct.
in America, the payment processors don't want anything to do with adult work. So if you get a platform that is able to host it, if they take payments at some point, they will grow big enough that they can't anymore. So yeah, I like platform diversity, right? Like Patreon stuff for me has classically been more of a tip jar thing than what I put my heart and soul into, because the discoverability on Patreon is very poor.
Mm-hmm.
You pretty much are only getting funneled to it by your other social media and whatnot. So
Connecting to this, what would their opinion is to when to start Patreon? Somebody starts it right off the bat and just trickles one or two people. Somebody just starts it when they have a bigger social media, so they can just bomb it everywhere. And so, what is your opinion on this, JL?
I wouldn't make one until you had a plan for what you were going to do with it. Like
Yes.
even if it is, this will be just a tip jar if people want to, whatever. Like have that be the intent going forward, because I think it's very hard to rebrand it after. Like if you start off very loose with it and then eventually put a bunch more in it, you've lost all of the momentum that you would from originally opening it up. And now I'll let somebody else talk about it.
Devaki? Devaki, what is your opinion about these passive incomes? What is the best advice you have?
Oh, you're muted.
Oh.
Muted.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
I wanted to say that I don't want to approach it at least from the point of view of like starting off that it has to be a passive income. How about just looking at in the form of networking with the fans of the comic book industry? Because when you say you have to earn money on the side, it's really stressful because that's what you're actually doing right now. You're trying to make money and pay the bills and save. And then you pressurize yourself by saying, okay, I want to have another passive income. So that's actually how I look at it. And I'm very interested to get into Patreon because I want to know who are the people, connect to the audience basically. And I wouldn't really start expecting to earn much to make a difference through that, at least in the first 6 months to 8 months. But I'll say that most comic book artists, and I was recently encouraged online by another pro who's very well known. So she told me on the DM, she said, like she had started selling prints online. So all the cover work that she does, it goes on to, she can sell it online as a print format. And she said you should also try it out. And actually, there are many online places where you can do that. And it can be traditional art, it can be digital art. And if you are a popular artist, if you are a well-known artist, you can actually bank on that when you need an emergency income, like an emergency fund.
yes.
So suppose anything which is hand done has a lot of value to it, and you can mark it up higher, much more than a digital print in its actual art form that you are selling. And that online platform actually is like an agency. They are doing the job of doing that other half of the work for you. So I'm really interested in both because I see the later as something making more sense to it. But I want to add to that that the way I want to approach it is that I want to be active on a project, right? Like currently, I'm not active on a 5 issue comic book project. So when I start working, and the moment they start the promotion of that particular issue, the first issue gets launched, or any project that I have so far finished last year that hasn't yet been released, when that happens, I'll tie up my prints being available online or launching my Patreon along with that, so that I'm driving the audience with my through my current project promotion to the other avenues as well. But if I start doing it now, because I have been silent so far for the last 3 months, I haven't published anything in the last 3 months, it might require a lot of push from my side to do it, and it may not give me satisfactory result. So I'll say the word to strategize, to plan and to strategize along with it. And that includes even attending cons for me, because I want to be part of a project for me to travel so far off and expensive and go there. And then I know I have a project. So that leads to me being in other panels and talking to people, and then having a table if I can afford the time for it at the same, in the whole itinerary. So I think that is strategizing your move so that you can economize on it.
Bruce, I have a question for you. Since we are talking about marketing and networking and whatever that is right now the topic, I'm curious, what would you say would be the best idea to be? Marketing in itself is quite of an Achilles heel for a lot of artists, I find. They don't know how to do it well. They stumble through it. Some people manage to figure out what to do, but most of them don't really. What is your advice for people who are just starting out and want to build up their domain?
I think that marketing, kind of like making art in general, is all about know thyself. And the more you know what you like to do and how you want to present yourself, the better it will work out. So just like with art, you experiment a bunch, you find out what you're actually interested in making as opposed to what you're interested in consuming, or, things that you like and you're like, oh my goodness, they have that good style, but it's not me. And I think marketing is very much the same thing. There's so many platforms out there, so many ways to go about it. And, what works for one person is really not going to work for another person, just based on your personality, how you like to use platforms, what demographics you connect to. So I think it's really a journey of self-knowledge and branding, really, that, like, figuring out, okay, how, who am I? Like, I guess for me, it's I am the weird landscapes guy, and I know that I don't really enjoy Instagram, and I enjoy Facebook less and less. And I can see that Twitter's getting more traction, and I'm enjoying my time there much more than I used to back in the day comparatively. So I
Oh, yes.
adjust my time investment accordingly, and I adjust my marketing accordingly. And maybe in terms of like being a landscape person, I can find some things to share, like travels, et cetera, that might tie into that particular brand. So it really starts from knowing yourself and then working out from there, because you are communicating, especially as a creative, especially as an artist. You are creating, you are communicating a persona that you've chosen to communicate to the world. So you'd better start by figuring out what that is, knowing yourself.
That's part of the journey, I think, most likely. Uh, I think most people who start out from the zero, and even if you are well in your journey already, figuring out what to do and how to do it may be a bit hard if you say part of a country that doesn't really have any art society or comics or any group gatherings. Like for example, in my country, Hungary, we have I think AnimeCon is the only thing that's present. So most of the artists here struggle with finding connections. So what would you do in this kind of scenario? I think a lot of people would be in similar stances since I have a few friends like from South Africa or near here in near Asia, Eurasia, who has problems with branching out. This is a question for all three of you, so please. Any of you?
I would recommend researching what platforms really like speak towards what sort of work you want to be doing. Like in that can help a ton with branching out. Like I think I'm late to the party, but I just found out about ArtStation, and that is where I've been finding a lot of really great like pro artists, right? And a lot of them are from like um Eastern Europe and Russian countries that I would have never found on Twitter, right? But because
Yes.
I'm looking on ArtStation, now I'm finding all these really interesting production artists. So, and I also would have never found them on DeviantArt, right? Because DeviantArt is flush with um, a lot of more like anime fandom, etc. artists. So like researching which platforms you want to focus in on, and like doing searches through hashtags and things like that too. Like there's ink like pen and ink drawing groups and like dark art or anime or fantasy and whatnot, and like you can find that those groups like already exist or they're already like advertising themselves because they also want to get more eyes on their work. And so by following those and seeing kind of where people are congregating online, that's a great way to see like if you're looking for more work and looking for more eyes, the fans of those artists will also be looking in those places because they want to see more of what they like.
Mm-hmm. You like it?
So what I did last year was actually making my website, and that was what gave me a lot of good projects. And I felt I should have done it much earlier. But I was saying that it took a lot of work, it took a lot of hours for me to do it, and it was painful because I was designing it and I was organizing so many years of work. But it happened, and the soon it happened, I know there was a lot of people who were getting to know all the range of stuff I have done. And when I was also looking back, I found myself, I have worked in so many different genres that I was surprised that I've actually not branched out before. So I think that's my channel of telling people this is what I do. I've also see that ArtStation, like Trivia said, it's a great platform. It's really, really inspiring. You just go and see, and it will make you do art on the side. But I don't have an ArtStation profile or anything. Maybe because I'm on a subconscious level, I don't want to push myself to an expectations that I know that I need more work to do, and I also want to focus on my own strengths. So when I see somebody has done, like for example, my strengths are in it is
So
I think
I think that he
I just
lost
continue.
connection. Yeah, yeah.
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 Continue with your
Yeah, so
thoughts though.
I was saying that so sorry, yeah. So branching out, I think, has to do something on the line of marketing yourself. And I will borrow from what Bruce said, that it is understanding your strengths and you as a person on what you want to focus on. And my focus is, drawing with ink. I am not so passionate about coloring my projects. So what I enjoy doing, drawing and inking, is what I focus on. And the moment I'll go to our station, I'll see that massive portfolio of work of stunning painting, digital paintings, and also I feel it's good to be inspired that way, but I don't want to expose myself to too many work of too many people at the same time, because it starts flooding my brain, and you start self-doubting. Are you too late to get onto the coloring platform? Do you want to start it over? So I've actually done the reverse. I was pushing myself to do some colors, and I just told myself my strengths are this, and I'm going to keep doing it no matter how long it takes. And when I focus, my work is even better. So I'll just say that it's just probably, in a percentage of 100, I'll say 70%, 75 focus on your work, on the strengths, and maybe another 15 to 20% on advertising your work in any marketing channels, whether it's social media, whether it's a website for which you are paid for, invested time and money. And I feel that can balance out the equation of getting more future projects for us.
It's true. Bruce, anything to add?
Sorry?
Anything to add?
Um,
Anything else to add?
not at the moment.
Oh, I see. Okay, then new question. Since we're talking about it, while it is not exactly part of business, but technically for an artist, our business card is our portfolio in a sense. And I see a lot of artists making the mistake that jam-packing their portfolio with everything they got. So it sometimes contains 30 up to 40 pieces of work and even more. And they do it, they packet everything. So every character art, environment art, whatever they are working on. And this is a common mistake. Of course, talking about portfolios is a whole another subject on its own. But what would be your suggestion for making a portfolio?
Well, I was
Bruce?
just critiquing them yesterday, actually, as one of the workshops here for Flights of Foundry. And yeah, I very much agree. One of the number one mistakes that you see is people packing too much in, too many different things, and not enough consistency with the types of things that they actually want to get work from. I like to say that a portfolio is a curated exhibit, not an archive. Like maybe when
Yes.
you are a grandmaster and you've got your whole career like behind you, then you can have an archive of like all these great things you've done. But when you are trying to break into the industry, it's important to be as laser focused as possible, kind of like Trivia was saying earlier, like when she thinks of me, she thinks of a certain type of art. My portfolio reflects that. You go to my website and you'll immediately see landscapes, weird, vivid colors. If you're an art director or a client and you need those combination of things, you're going to be like, okay, this guy's going on my short list. Other artists who see it, when they have to pass on a project or it's not appropriate for them, but maybe it's appropriate for me, they immediately think of me because that's, like I'm putting forward a very focused presentation of what sorts of work I want to get. So I think that's like really the number one thing. And of course, we all come into our career out of like, maybe art school or self-taught experimentation, and there's the temptation to include all of the experiments, and the portfolio is not the place for them. Other social media may be a useful place to have those experiments and process and stuff. But you really want to give art directors like an immediate impression of what you're going to give them, and that you're going to give it to them consistently. And one final piece of advice I got from some art directors that have carried with me is they judge you as an artist on your best piece, but they hire you on your worst.
I said
So
that in a panel yesterday. Yeah.
so important.
Yes. He said the exact same thing yesterday.
Yep. Yeah, like as somebody who's been hiring a lot of artists recently, when I go and look at a portfolio, like, and this isn't meant to be mean, but I know whether or not I want to keep looking within like 1 to 5 seconds. Like
Yes.
when I load your portfolio, I have immediately made a judgment. So that that judgment needs to be like what you want an art director to see. And if I load up somebody's portfolio and it just says portfolio on the top and it's 50 pictures and they're all small, and now I have to click each one and it's a mix of sketches and mood boards and finals and character turnarounds from the 3D program you took for a semester, I'm like, I don't have the emotional energy to make choices about this artist. So like sort your portfolio by the work that you want. And like if you're somebody who's out of art school where you do have a lot of different things that you're doing and you haven't quite landed on like your thing, your 3D stuff goes in a different spot, your character stuff goes in a different spot, and like your final paintings go in a different spot, so I can just look at those and it should be under 12.
Yes.
So yeah.
Delicate?
Yes. So, I mean, it's interesting to know what Bruce and Trivia is talking about because I haven't judged somebody's portfolio yet. So I'm also picking up some tips from how they actually hire people. So hopefully I'll keep that in mind even when I go and show my portfolio to somebody. But I just feel like that when I did my website, that is also my portfolio of work. What I was trying to do is what just Trivia just said. Basically, it's just to organize the work that you have and to focus on the best piece that you have created, even if it means like you're having just two pieces in that category. I think that can speak a lot about your strengths. And if it's just one flash page with a lot of elements in it, they'll get to see not just this. I feel like when someone is judging portfolio, they're not judging just your art. It's also shows that how passionately you're connected with the theme that you have put out, and how much can you talk about the character that you have drawn. And also, like, if you're going for a portfolio review, like Marvel used to do it earlier, and DC has the DC Talent Workshop. And when you go there, they want to see, have you done any action scenes? That's the publisher you're going to. So you have to create some new pieces in order to convince them that I can do this. So that's also important to approach the right publisher. So like for me, I have a body of work which has a range, but if I'm going to show my work to DC, then I will just decide to do something that they can count me on. So I will prepare that work like that. But it's that you have to focus. Whom do you want to go to hire you? So I will not go to a gaming industry and say that hire me because I don't have such stuff. I don't have portfolio like that, and I also don't have a large piece of portfolio for illustration to go to an editorial, like what do you say that the magazines like New
Yeah.
Yorker or something like that. I don't have
Yes.
illustrations, so much of it that I can say hire me, because illustrations like that, thematic illustrations, very different from sequential storytelling. And I wanted from the day one to do sequential. So I have loads of sequential work which I know can give me, someone can hire me out from there. So like, for example, I had applied for Valiant portfolio a review some last year, I think that happened. And what I did is I drew a character that was War Mother was a comic, and I did a character and I did it. I enjoyed for myself. I enjoyed doing it for myself. So even though I like sent it out and irrespective of what the outcome it's going to be, I know I have a piece like that, where I tested my skills, and I could see I could do this also. I was happy to do that, and it's not a waste if you create a portfolio directed towards a certain publisher, even if you are not hired, because I too get rejected too, even if you're not hired. And at any point of time, you can get rejected. So the other thing about portfolio, you're submitting it to somebody, and you have done 10 years of work, but you can still get rejected because it's also what the requirement is. Their requirement is something else, and what you have given is not exactly to that. And so they will prefer somebody who has already worked on their titles many times to hire them back, because they had a comfort level of working with that person. They know how that worked. So that also makes a lot of difference on whether you have worked before and you have high chances to be again hired back fresh. Like even if I'm hired 1 year back by Archie's, I want to go back to them and tell that I have done this work, and so see my stuff. And I actually do send them a mail and say that this is my work and I have my website and so on and so forth. And if you do that, you'll be surprised. Most people will actually revert to your email because you have done professional work for them before. And so they will
Yes.
revert to you. So any time of a career, upgrading your portfolio and going back to being rehired by the same people is always a good advice. I will give myself, and I'll encourage everyone to try that out actually.
Yeah,
Okay, sorry to jet in, but we have 4 minutes left on this panel, and I would like to take the time to get all three of you to write down your portfolio access or social media that the people can reach you if they are interested in your work or just want to talk to you into the chat in Toast B, if you would. You can also speak verbally if you wish. This will be recorded, of course, so most likely people can check it out as well.
I will go put mine in the Discord. And yeah, I should have prefaced that, each industry will have very different needs for
Of
what kind
course.
of portfolios they're looking for. So I'm looking for a lot of production art. So I'm looking for people that already know how to do stuff, because I don't have a lot of I don't have the budget or the time to train somebody in a first project. So when I'm looking at things, it's like, do you already know how to do it? Yes, no. And then we can keep talking. And if you're working with any specific IPs, like if you're trying to work for Blizzard, if you're trying to work for any Marvel, Hasbro, any of those things, people will already want to know that you already know all of the characters or specific details about the characters,
Yes.
because those when I'm given a license, I'm given 3D vector turnarounds, and it's like, this is what every joint looks like. This is exactly what the face looks like. And those little differences define whether or not the final art is approved for that license holder. So already having a couple of bolts being off right on a robot character is enough to get some stuff sent back. So attention to detail.
Yeah.
Okay, and now I'll stop.
Those are really helpful. I think the most people that just making portfolios out of the blue and try to do it well made the mistake that they want to show everything they have and every skill that they have. So I think they want to leave it to the AI to choose for them, which is a mistake. This is why all three of you advised us well enough to be more specific. So if you go to Blizzard, say Blizzard, don't try to get a portfolio with anime characters in it, for God's sake. That won't make you hired.
Unless you're gonna work for, Big Eye Small Mouth or a bunch of the other things. If you got anime stuff in there, there's a bunch of places that want it. Can put stuff on Drive-Thru RPG. I've got a bunch of opinions about that. If you draw anime and don't know where to put it, feel free to ask me.
That's nice. Okay, any final words from anybody? Or any questions from the viewers? We got a little bit of time.
Well, I'll leave my plug in the chat, but people can find me at brucebernaise.com and on Twitter at Bruce Draws.
Yes. Sorry.
So, continue.
No, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, sorry, just wanted to say to feel free to put your down your what is it? Social
Your
media
plug?
and other plug. Yes, plug. It's a new word. I need to learn it.
Yes, so someone can contact me at niyogidevaki.com. That is my last name first and my first name next to it. No hyphen, no space, niyogidevaki.com. And there's a contact form there, and they can directly reach. That will directly get into my inbox. And I'm there at Devaki Niyogi for both Twitter and Instagram.
Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed your stay and the panel of ours. I wish you guys a wonderful evening. Not sure what time is it there at any of you. And I think I will leave this to continue the chat, if you will.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bruce.